Do you enjoy reading? Do you enjoy reading short stories? Do you enjoy reading scary stories? Then I have just the thing for you. Stories of the Bizarre and Terrifying Omnibus 1, a complete collection of all of my short stories so far in one handy little collection. It also comes with a handful of neat little extras, including a glossary of all the creatures and forces I've created over the years, author's notes providing insight into my creative process and inspirations, and even 2 all-new short stories that function as proof of concepts for 2 ideas I've had for much bigger works. If you're at all interested, feel free to check out the links in the description. It's available in both ebook, paperback, and for the first time ever, hardcover. When it was announced that Resident Evil 4 was receiving a remake, I can't deny that I was crying foul over it. Yes, I did love the remake of 2, and it also made sense for this game to receive a remake as well. But when you really looked at 4 objectively, it still held up remarkably well by modern standards, and just straight up did not need one. If any other game in the Resident Evil franchise was both deserving and in need of one, Code Veronica was easily the obvious choice. However, with that being said, I can't deny that the remake of 4 was actually a very enjoyable experience. Yes, it didn't hit the same highs as the remake of 2 had reached, but it was nowhere near the disappointment of 3's remake. This remake did a tremendous job of justifying its existence, and kept me coming back for more. However, it does need to be said that this remake had a lot stacked against it, largely because of the legacy of the original. Not only was it the entry point for many people into the Resident Evil series, like myself, but it also revolutionized third-person shooters, paving the way for titles like Gears of War to further define that subgenre. Combine all that with its energetic, campy story, memorable characters, and tense atmosphere, the remake had a lot of opportunities to just fall apart. Yet despite that, the dev team managed to pull off something that stands strong in the shadow of the original release. Right off the bat, Remake 4, which is what I'll be referring to it from now on, makes it clear that this is the same kind of horror from the original release, where tension is driven by resource management, and if you just burn through your ammo all willy-nilly, you're gonna have a bad time. It's a nice contrast to the remake of 2, where the enemy count was greater than your finite resources and forced the player to pick and choose when to fight or flee, just like how it was in the past. This style of action horror still works with a more modern control scheme and visual fidelity. Hell, it's also complemented by some new ideas that don't hurt the game's fear factor either. One of these new additions was stealth kills. I hadn't been following the news about the game as I wanted to go in as blind as I did with the PlayStation 2 release. So color me surprised when I realized that Leon Kennedy could now sneak up on enemies to give them a nice knife surprise. Letting the player sneakily dispatch enemies was a nice addition, since it gives the player more options when resources are low, though I will admit it is disappointing how limited stealth's use is, since once the enemies are alert and it's time for some action, there's really no use for it. However, since the knife is upgradable now, like the guns, using it both in and out of stealth becomes a far more viable option than before, and it really gives the player a potential out when they're just getting by the skin of their teeth, more so than in the original 2008 release. However, one new addition doesn't work as well, and it's something that's been quite common in games these days: a crafting system. Like the stealth, it does work, it's just antithetical to this style of horror, since you know that if you're running low on one ammo type, you can just go into the crafting menu and just make some more, de-escalating whatever tight but doable spot you found yourself in. There are measures though that are meant to balance this out. The scrap you need to actually craft the ammo doesn't stack, so it takes up more space in your inventory, but as I played on, there was never a time when I didn't have a specific ammo I wanted on hand. So the times where I felt underarmed, clenching my jaw in tension as I fought on regardless in the remake, were far fewer than in the original. I found this to be less of an issue in Resident Evil 8 though, but considering that's an original release and not a remake, I don't have a previous version of the game to really taint my opinion on it in that particular installment. Visually, this game looks great. We've got some absolutely claustrophobic, atmospheric, and gorgeous environments with nicely detailed character models to match. The game comes with a bevy of graphical options on PC to tweak the visuals to be as demanding or simplistic as your rig can handle. I had most of the options set to high and got the game running smooth, with only a few hitches while capturing footage, and even then, they didn't come close to eating up my PC's RAM. Capcom really put the RE engine to great use, recreating the various areas and locales of the original game without destroying what made them unique in the first place. Returning players will recognise various set pieces and areas right away, but others, you won't realise you're in them until the enemies appear. The farmhouse sequence, for example, where you and Lewis fight off waves of enemies, is telegraphed early on, but when I played it, I had no idea it was coming until the event started. In fact, just about every area has had some small tweak or adjustment to help make them feel fresher. Again, with the farmhouse, there's now a ladder connecting the two floors. This gives the player more room to move around in what is now a more hectic gauntlet, or that the town hall in the village square gets destroyed later on, cutting the area in half and changing how the player has to navigate that area. And there's more like this. There's also new areas that slot in seamlessly with the original ones, creating a solid mix of new and old to keep you on your toes. The story too has undergone some changes of its own, and I won't lie, while some are an improvement, there has been some regression of quality. Leon and Ashley are much better characters than they were before. There's a much longer build-up in their relationship, as they come to depend on and help each other over the course of the game, so their bond as survivors is a lot more believable as they become closer. Hell, Capcom didn't actually remove the flirting, but it has become a lot more subtle and in good humour. Or maybe I just dug too deep into certain scenes, but regardless, our two leads still make a great and believable double team. The same can also be said about the village chief Mendez. He in particular is more fleshed out in the game lore and gets a bit more screen time, giving him a far greater presence and also giving his boss fight a lot more weight. However, other characters are now less enjoyable. One example is Louis Serra. He now comes off more like a sleaze and is just killed off way too soon, right as he's becoming just as likable as the original version. Salazar and Sadler, they just don't have the same charm anymore. This is largely thanks to the exclusion of the walkie-talkie segments, but isn't helped by their new voice actors. Salazar just lacks the childish sadism he had before, though his new boss fight is a nice addition. Sadler has gone from being a jovial Dracula-like figure to just being more of a generic cult leader bad guy. Then there's the Merchant and Ada. The Merchant just lacks the boisterousness he had in the original game, and now he just sounds like some random Brit. So every time you find him, he's just not as memorable or fun anymore. As for Ada, her new actress just was not the right fit for the character. I'm not trying to hate on her, but she was easily the weakest part of the voice cast. Her performance isn't that great, and she fails, let alone tries, to convey the character's nature as a femme fatale archetype. Combine that with Ada's new sweater outfit, and I never saw the character as Ada Wong when she was on screen. Instead, I saw her less seductive cousin Susie Wong.
The deal was, we get you out of here when you deliver the amber. No amber, no protection, Luis.
Such a stickler for details, Hyde.
A change that was a surprise delight, though, was what Capcom did with the sequence where you play as Ashley. The original set piece was literally just thrown in the bin, and what we get is something that is undeniably better. See, instead of running away from cultists and throwing lanterns at them, now we get something ripped right out of Clock Tower. Ashley now has no way to fight back against the Plaga-infested suits of armor, so you're utterly helpless against these new enemies, with your only defense being a lantern that can temporarily stun them. Once you stop shining it on them, they're able to move again. Using this, you have to navigate some tight maze-like rooms, avoid the enemies while you try to solve puzzles in order to save Leon. I won't lie, this was easily the scariest part of Remake 4 for me. I loved it. The tension, the gameplay, and the overhanging sense of dread all came together to get my heart racing. And of course, it was capped off perfectly. Honestly, I hope someone took notes while making this segment, because I can see this being the foundation for a worthy and long overdue follow-up to Haunting Grounds. What sucks though is that some set pieces were changed in less favourable ways, or were just straight up removed. Like the encounter with Salazar's statue, for example. The statue is still around, but now it's more of an environmental hazard you need to navigate around as you fight enemies. Okay, that's fair enough. That set piece wasn't one that was great to begin with, and it's not really on anyone's favourite Resident Evil encounters lists. Whereas the U3 boss though, and the entire sequence building up to it is just gone, with nothing to replace it. That doesn't work for me because, in my opinion, when remaking a game, there is a golden rule that should be followed to the letter. If it was in the original, then it should be in the remake. But if it has to be taken out, for whatever reason, then it must be replaced with something else. No exceptions. That also includes the upskirt Easter egg. And yes, I do mean that. Now we come to this game's iteration of the Mercenaries mode. I love it! I mean it when I say this is quite possibly the best version of Mercenaries since 6. This is thanks to two nice new additions, the Mayhem meter and special abilities. Mayhem mode is something you trigger once the aforementioned meter is full. This makes you hit harder and rack up higher point multipliers and time extensions. This is never not fun and is so satisfying when it lets you turn a tight spot into a walk in the park. This is also how you trigger the special abilities. These help differentiate the characters beyond their loadouts and gives the player more options. Leon's stats get a boost, making him a more efficient killing machine. Lewis, though, deploys a dynamite bundle, which is great for crowd control, while Krauser and Hunk get super melee and unlimited ammo. My only complaints with the mode are that the map selection is extremely anemic, with only 3 maps to play on, and that while it's great to finally be able to play as Lewis, where the hell is Wesker? This makes me wonder whether or not DLC is planned for this mode, and that some things may have been held back for that reason, especially since the Mercenaries mode in Revelations 2, as well as other entries, had not only a more diverse array of maps, but a more well-rounded roster of playable characters. And that's everything I have to say on Remake 4. It's a respectful, modern reintroduction that sits perfectly alongside the 2005 original. It maintained the scares and applied updates where they were needed most, but this came at the cost of some of what made the original memorable in the first place. Regardless, if you've tried the original or not, Remake 4 has a lot to offer newcomers and longtime fans alike.
Submit your body and release yourself from fear.
Alright, sweet, thanks for checking out this video, I really do appreciate it. If you guys really liked it, then by all means hit the like and the subscribe buttons, that would really help me out in the algorithm. Now for the next review, I'm planning to take a look at the Enhanced Edition mod for Silent Hill 2. It's actually been quite interesting to check this out, and I gotta say, the good ending actually got me right in the heart. Then after that, I'll be checking out Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun, and I'll finally be finishing my computer's upgrade soon, so after that, I'm gonna be doing a backlog showcase, taking a look at some stuff that I've had kicking around on the shelf for a while, including Atomic Heart. Anyway, I got all that and more coming up, so please stick around.